All right, our last thing that we will cover in our lectures for HTML will be talking about working with lists, links, and images. So you're always going to be working, you might be working with lists when you're doing your HTML development. You're always going to have links, even if you have a navigation bar, you're going to have a link. And then you are going to obviously be working with images. All right, so let's dive a little bit more into lists. So lists can be a good way to create structure. Maybe we're listing, say we're doing a recipe and we're listing ingredients or instructions. Those are two different types of lists. So types of lists. So a browser will indent lists by default when it sees, aka reads, a list element in the code. Lists can be a little tricky because you have the indication for the list itself, and then you have a list item. So if you're doing a list, you just want to make sure you have all your tags in place and everybody's there and accounted for. So we have an ordered list, which is going to be OL, ordered lists, right? That's easy, makes sense. And we will have the opening and the closing tag. And an ordered list is going to display as numbers. So again, if you were doing a step-by-step process, or that recipe, you're doing the instructions, 1, right? Fold in the cheese, or it's a Schitt's Creek reference if anybody gets that. This will be displayed as, ordered list will be displayed as a numbered list. Regardless of the list that you're using, a list item is LI. And we're going to break down the structure of this in a second, and we'll do a demo with this in class as well. So for example, if I'm indicating an ordered list, this will be my opening tag, and my closing tag will be down at the bottom. And in between, I will have my list items. So if I have list item, my first list item is, preheat the oven to blah, blah, blah. That's my first list item. My next list item is, gather your flour and this and that. That will be my next list item. So when the web knows that this is an ordered list, it will automatically number those for you, which is nice. So if you delete one, it will, fix your numbering. It's really awesome. So it's smart enough to know that this is numbered. So if you have 10 of them, you have 2 of them, it will make sure that you have 1, 2, or 1, 2, 3, whatever you need. Okay. So ordered list is going to display it as a numbered list. An unordered list. So unordered, it can display as a bulleted list. So example, your ingredients for your recipe, right? Those don't really need to be listed in any particular order. You will begin that by doing your opening and closing tag with unordered list, and then your list items, and those will just appear as a bulleted list. Okay. Lastly, and this is one that you don't use, that, well, personally, I don't use it that often, but one that you'll probably not need as often is a definition list. So that's DT, that's your term, and then DD is the definition. Okay, so again, I'm not super worried whether or not you remember this one, because that one we're not going to use a lot. But this displays as a list that defines something. But ordered lists and unordered lists can come in super handy. All right. So a nest within a nest within a list is called actually I should say list. Jesus, guys. A list within a list is called a nested list. So, and again, that's where it's easy to leave out opening and closing tags. And I'm going to have you guys work a little bit with Codecademy too. So it will also help you keep track of your tags, and it will let you know if you're missing anything. So when you start nesting lists or nesting anything, that's when it gets a little hairy. But it's just important to know that even though you're nesting things, everything will still have an opening and closing tag if it is supposed to have an opening and closing tag. Okay. All right, so again, we're going to try that together in class. And now we're going to talk about links, okay? So your link element. A link obviously allows you to move from one page to another, enabling you to browse or surf. Funny how that works, right? That's where those terms come from. We're able to do this with links, right? If you really think about it, everything that we interact with on the web is driven from a link, right? If we click somebody's about page on their website, that's a link. If we're clicking through anything, if you're on Old Navy's website and you click an image, that image has a link attached to it that takes you to something, okay? So your link element, link is going to be A. Most commonly, you will see this as Ahref, and the Href is going to tell you where your image is, okay? So let's expand on that a little bit. So anatomy of a link. So any link, and the Href can refer to, again, you guys, I'm back on my A game. I haven't taught this since this time last year. So the H, like literally a year ago, since I taught packages on last semester. So here we go. Href is your link, so not just your image. That's where your link is. My apologies there. All right, so Ahref, we have your web address, and then we have text. So for example, if we want to click on, maybe this says about on a web page, and we click the about text, this is what it is accessing, okay? So the full opening tag indicates a link, okay? So this is our opening tag, Ahref. So again, you'll notice our closing tag's down here. So we haven't closed that tag yet. Lots of information with the attributes we spoke about earlier. Href, their attribute, and this is where it's taking us, okay? So linking to other sites, and again, I don't expect you guys to commit all of this to memory. I just want you to understand the different functions in the links, okay? When you link to a different site, the Href value is the full web address, which is known as the absolute URL, okay? So this is Pinterest. If we were to click on view on Pinterest on somebody else's website, this is what that link might look like, okay? So thinking of linking to pages in a site. So if you have, if you're developing your own portfolio site or any kind of site, linking, so in your nav bar, for example, if you're clicking back and forth between nav links, you can link directly within the site without having to do the www. So what this looks like is, for example, if we click the home button, that's going to call up the index.html file that is in the site. Okay, maybe we have about.html. Then this would be about, and our text that we would click would be about. So again, regardless of how long these elements get, right, because this is still our opening tag, this is our closing tag, we will always have something visual that we will click on. So this is our text that we will click on, okay? So again, when you're linking within the same site, there's no need to specify the domain name. This is known as a shorthand called the relative URL. And again, some of these things will be on your quiz, but I'm not going to make you commit all of this to memory, okay? So I just want to make sure that you guys get the gist of how the back end of something is working, especially if you're working with a developer. If you're designing everything in Illustrator or Photoshop, or you're designing a prototype in XD and giving that to a developer, you need to understand what the capabilities of the code are before you hand them something that is impossible to actually make, right? So that is what I want you guys to understand what's happening in the back end. Email links. Email links are super easy. Again, all of our links are starting with that href. An email is set off in quotations, and we have mail to and then whoever, okay? An email, and so if I click the text that says email Natalie, this will actually open up a user's email program. So when you use the mail to, that's going to indicate that it opens your mail program. And if you don't set your default mail program, it will always open the email program that you don't want it to open. That happens to me all the time on my Mac. It tries to open my mail client, and I don't use that one. So, fun fact: Mail2 will open the user's email program. So, opening links in new windows. This is super handy. Again, href. If you see anything that says target blank, the underscore blank lets you know that we're opening that in a new window, and that can become very handy if you're providing, maybe you have a blog and you're linking to other things. You can have that open in another window instead of, and opening in another window is very important because you never want to take someone directly off your website, right? If you have them open in a new window, they still have your site open in another tab, okay? So you want to do everything you can to discourage people from completely leaving your website. So if you're providing resources that are external, having those open in a new window is always best, because maybe they weren't finished with your website and they still want to stay on it too, and they don't have to hit the back button or completely pull up your site again. Just more convenient, and it keeps traffic on your site as well. All right, so that will again also be a demo. Images. So I do want to stop here because images can get a little heavy. We'll cover images in the next one.